Hey everyone, welcome back. This is the latest edition of the Contributor Technical Discussions Call, June 25th, 2025. We have a few callouts here, be some demos from the DevX team, and then a few discussion points. To start, I see we have a section for the Gnome Digest. Leon, do you want to add anything?
Yes, I would like to grab the screen from you if that's okay.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. 1 second. All right. Does everybody see the screen? Okay, awesome. So as before, every 2 weeks when we have these contributor calls, we're going to be spending the few beginning minutes just going through the digest and just highlighting the best stuff that's happened in the past week or two. So this is the June 19th Gnome Digest, which came out last week. The first thing that happened was that we managed to get staging back up to support crossing, and now everything that's live on master is actually live on staging. So now the staging network actually follows the master branch, so you'll be able to access all of the latest realms, all of the latest features, etc. The second thing is that we've merged this really cool feature called the GNOWeb user profiles. So for example, if we go to u/Leon, you'll be able to see that here there's a homepage, and then at the bottom here we have contributions. So for example, if we go to, for example, Morgan, so u/Morgan, we can now see Morgan's homepage at the top with all of his contributions down here, that being the realms and the pures. This is a really nice way to increase discoverability. So now people who have a registered username will actually be able to have a full profile page, so to say, which will also list all of the things that they've published to the chain, which makes discoverability very good, because now you can actually browse what people did and what they uploaded. That brings us to the next point, and that's exactly the user contributions. So here, for example, we can see Manfred's page. He has a ton of contributions here, and all of these are actually viewable via this feature on the chain now directly, instead of having to search for them on GitHub through the examples folder. Okay. And moving on, Peer Dev Learning, they have started a very nice YouTube channel, which includes new builder videos. So essentially getting started with GNOME, getting started with the tooling, getting started with your first smart contract with tokens, etc. I highly recommend you guys check it out. Thank you so much for this. Then we have a brief doc on TX links. So we have merged a simple rdocs TX link realm, which essentially allows you to, or shows you how to create transaction links for simple calls, for calls with coins, for example, or even calls to another realm. So if you're interested in this, please check out the docs and check out the source, because that's the logic of these examples. The source actually tells you what it does and how it does it. Okay, and then finally, Miloš has added support for multisig for Gnocchi, and this feature will actually allow us to be compatible with the standard Cosmos CLI tools during multisig. Great job. Okay, that's it for the June 19th version. And then moving on to this week's version, we have added something really cool. This is by Alexi and Gillum. So we've added a way to input, to have a form in which you can input data in your renders. So this is a new GNOME Markdown extension, and essentially you'll be able to now have users input data more easily on the realm itself, and then click a button to submit it to change the URL that they're on. And this can be reflected exactly here. So this is a coin checker that we already have. This was started by Not June. And now it actually supports exploring coins, and you can type in your address, be it the GNU address, be it a Cosmos address, or any other batch32 address format, and then the UGNOT or whatever denomination you want, and then you can just browse for it, and you'll be able to get your balance. So this is currently live on staging, and obviously the balances are for the staging network. Please check this out. This is really, really cool. Yes, if you do want to retweet anything, please do. It would be great to get this around and share as much as possible. Then we have a small multi-error library from Mol. So Mol has adapted the Uber multi-error Go package for its idiomatic usage in Gno. You can check it out in this pull request, and soon it's going to be live on the staging network. And then finally, we have options for Common DAO. So Geronimo Albi added a PR, added a little change in the Common DAO factory, which allows you to more easily set the options for your DAO that you're making. This is a quality of life change. This was possible before, but first you had to create your DAO and then modify it afterwards. Now you can create it with your specific options in one step. Check out the pull request here. And then finally, it is crunch time for us and for everybody in the Gnoland team and the partners. We're double checking everything. We're verifying GovDAO is polished, and we've been busy bringing mainnet beta to everyone. So thank you all for your support, and bear with us. And that's it from our side. Thank you guys for listening. And definitely, as Johnny said, please, if you find yourself here or if you find anything interesting from one of these tweets, please reshare, spread the word, use the libraries that we've shown. And yeah, that's it. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks a lot for that, Leon. And that all looks great. I was actually thinking, have you ever thought of maybe doing what you just did right now and having a quick video, like a video walkthrough of each digest? I think, yeah, that would be nice as well.
Yep, that's kind of the thing that we've been doing. We did it last week, or actually last call, and then this call. So we do it every 2 weeks.
Oh, but I mean, as part of the digest, like when you tweet it out or when you share it, maybe part of the first tweet.
Yeah, that also makes sense. Let's discuss.
Great. Yeah, we can jump to demo. So I'll give like a quick overview here. We'll probably only just do the first one and then maybe push the other two for the next call, just so they're a bit more polished and comprehensive. But yeah, I think as most in the call are aware, we've been working on providing a new version and implementation of boards as part of a launch deliverable. At this point, the implementation is essentially complete. Some things just to be through on the interim versioning solution. But maybe to give a recap, there's full CRUD with role-based permissions, inter-realm compatible data access. There's an initial moderation approach, primarily through flagging, and the core functionality, of course, is also there, with creation, deletion, being able to comment, repost, participate in threads, and it all comes together with this, what we like to think of as like a classic Reddit style UI. And I think with that being said, we can hand it off to Geronimo, who will, give us a quick demo.
Thank you, Danny. I will share in the meantime. Let me. Okay, that's actually the main boards, the realm view. But to start, I want to give a quick context on what boards is for the ones that don't know about the project. Boards is similar to Reddit. So you can think of it as a forum realm. It allows users to create boards where each individual board is an independent community. And within each board, users can create threads, which is where discussions happen through comments. The current boards implementation, as Danny mentioned, is an iteration on top of an existing boards realm. In this new iteration, we are adding features like a basic moderation through flagging, updated UI, member support with roles and permissions, to name some. But the most important is that it adds support for DAOs. I mentioned that boards are independent communities, and one of the important parts of it is to support governance for features like, for example, adding or removing members, changing roles, adding threads, etc., for moderation. And to achieve it, each individual board is able to use an underlying DAO where proposals could be created and voted before any of those board actions are executed. It's worth mentioning at this point that using a DAO is an optional feature that boards provide. I guess most of the cases will, but it can be done without a DAO too. So I have the UI here, but before exploring the UI, maybe we can check a couple of features by checking the code to have a better understanding, because there is a main idea behind the new iteration. Let me. So I'm opening the permissions file, and where you can find the main permissions interface. So most of these new board features are based around the permissions interface. So here you see it defines a minimum set of methods to manage users and roles. For example, you can check if a user has a role, if a user has a permission. I will come back to this one. You can set a user, you can add roles or change the roles for that user if it exists. You can remove, again, you can check the user, you can iterate them. Those are like basic functionalities. But the most important method to understand is this one, the with permission. So the basic idea here for this method is what it seems like. It's just to call a function when a user has a permission to do so. Otherwise, the function is not called. That's the basic idea. But you can do more under this. So if we see the arguments, we can see that we can send the user address, a permission, so to be able to execute a function. So in this case, the user is required to have a permission to be able to execute the function. You also see here some arguments. I will answer this part. But these arguments are the ones that the callback receives. Something that I can mention here is that every individual board has a permissions implementation assigned to it. So since a board is created, it will have a permissions implementation. So remember, boards are individual communities, that's important, and each board has a permissions implementation assigned to it. So right now, the board's realm provides a basic implementation of the permissions interface, which is the one that we are using by default for every board. But it's technically possible to assign any other implementations. For example, if you are an owner of a board, you could assign a custom implementation of the permissions that requires or validates custom requirements. For example, imagine that for some actions you might require a fee, or you might want to check some specific naming rules, depending on what you do in this callback. So, but coming back to the function, and maybe you're wondering why arguments are a function parameter. The reason for this is to allow permissions implementations that choose to use a DAO. For example, if you do so and you want to, for example, create a proposal before completing an action, like, for example, creating a thread. If you use a DAO, you could actually receive those arguments and use them, for example, to create a proposal. And when the proposal is actually approved, then is when you execute this callback. So in a nutshell, it depends on the implementation. This callback might happen when you call it or afterwards. So yeah, arguments are that basically parameters for proposals. But they can also imagine a case where you don't use a proposal, but maybe you want to, in your implementation, you want to check or validate something before calling the callback, because this will be done by the implementation. You can also use these arguments to validate before calling. Let me show an example of how this is used. Public, maybe, yeah. Let me see, the rename maybe is a good example. Yeah. So this is a public run function where you call when you want to rename a board. So you give the current name, and then you give the new name. Initially, you see a couple of assertions that are common for boards. For example, you want to know before doing anything that the realm is not locked, so it's not read-only, that the name is not empty, or that it doesn't exist. Maybe that it exists. Sorry. But the board, the new name, for example, that it doesn't exist. You get the board, etc. You see that the board is not read-only. But this is the important part. So as mentioned, each board has a permissions implementation attached to it. And the with permission is the key idea here. So in this case, for example, the board's realm calls the caller, since the user, it requires the permission board rename in this case, sends a couple of arguments, which are the board ID, the name, and the new name. And then the callback. The default implementation we have is going to execute it right away because it's not using proposals. But if you would use proposals, this would be part of the proposal. So it would be executed if the proposal passes. And if that happens, then you have to check again that the realm is not read-only, that name doesn't exist yet. And then, yeah, in this case, it's renaming, indexing, and emitting an event. Okay, let's check the UI. I already initialized some examples, so we can see most of the features, the most common ones. This is the main page, so you have like a main menu. There is an action to create a board. Some help section that at this moment there is no help, but the idea is to upload help regarding the board, how to use it. And then there is a list of admin users because the board itself can have a list of admin users. At this time, for example, because it's invite only, admin users are the only ones who can create boards. It's something that will change, but in the current version, it needs to be created by one of the admin users. But the idea is that this set of users are going to be, they have minimal power regarding, for example, moderation or some specific cases. But the idea is that each one of the boards that we can see here are the ones who has the authority to actually do many of those changes. So we have the list of boards, the name of the board, some status, we can sort. In this case, it's sorting by creation date. The first one is an example that doesn't contain any thread. So this is the board. We have some info here. And we can start a new conversation, which is essentially this action, creating a new thread. And there is like a menu that contains a couple of sub items where you can invite a member, you can list the board members, and you can freeze a board. Freezing a board is making it read-only, so you cannot add new threads or comments, for example, or you cannot edit anything. I'm skipping this one for now. This is another board, which in this case contains 7 threads. So here is the same thing. So the main area, and then you have each one of the threads listed here. There is a pagination support. You can sort. Again, the sorting and pagination is like a common behavior that you will see And let's see, for example, in this case, this thread has 12 replies or comments. So when you get there, you get the title, you get the content of the thread, a couple of actions that you can perform on them, and then the list of comments down here. Again, the same mechanic. You can reply, you can sort, and then you have some actions to add other replies, flagging, edit, delete, and so on. Flagging is the moderation right now. That's the only way there is. There are roles. Each member can have different roles, for example, moderator. And there is a flagging threshold that it's possible to set. So depending on the flagging threshold and the permissions, you can flag, and eventually, for example, there is a low threshold right now, but if I would flag this, it will be hidden. Same with the comments. You can repost a thread or reply, edit, delete, like the basic functionality. There is another feature here that imagine that here you have a lot of comments, but maybe you want just to follow this branch of comments. So you can link this, and what you would get is the thread, and then choose the branch of comments that follow first. Yeah. I mentioned here that you have the possibility to freeze a board, which makes it read-only. So the other example is actually a read-only board, this one. It has only one thread. You will see here that you can only list members and or unfreeze. And when you get into the threads, also they change. You can only flag or repost. You cannot add any reply, edit, or anything like that. And finally, this is an example of a repost. That's why I wanted to leave this off. Basically, here we have these through two boards. So the repost example have a thread, but this thread, it's a repost. By itself, it doesn't have any reply, or there has been no repost for this one. But when you will see that this thread is a repost of another thread. You get the content of the original thread. There is a custom body. This is optional, and then the same options as before. And you can go back to the original one, which is the number 42. And if we check the number 42, this is the thread, and you can see that there is one repost. So yeah, that's the demo. That's the current status. I don't know if there is any question.
Adam, I have a question.
Yes.
So we're considering using this for Gno.land. I saw that there's a remove user function. I'm curious, if you have an existing board and you remove a user, does that also remove their threads?
No, it will only remove the user.
Okay.
It's a good question. Many of these things that, or the behavior that we have here right now, there are probably things that has to still be discussed and improved, I guess, in the whole behavior. So, but at this point, if you delete the user, the threads will still be there.
Okay.
But then what do you delete? Because the user is registered outside the screen.
Sorry, what do you mean?
I don't understand the notion of delete user here, because a user in the context of GNO is more something that is registered in another realm than this one. So what do you delete when you delete a user?
Yeah,
It's a
okay.
member. Okay, members. Okay.
Yes. So a quick explanation. Under the hood, the default implementation that we have is using a simple DAO to track the users there. So these members here are actually members of a DAO, a simple one. There is at the moment no proposal support, but there is a DAO there. So removing a member means removing the member from the DAO. So given that boards is at this point invite only, it will remove the member, so the member won't be able to modify or add new comments, for example.
Is it possible to have boards without predefined member list?
Yeah, if I understand the question, yes. So initially, when a board is created, it is created with a single user, single member, which is the creator, the owner. The owner can add other owners, can add other admins, moderators, remove other owners. And so in that way, it is possible to, that is quite flexible. But the reality is that some actions are permissioned. So if eventually you have a board without owners, there are some things that you won't be able to do. It is possible to get into that state.
It's not more, I mean, if I'm just a user, I don't create the board. Can I participate to the board without asking the permission to do it?
No, at this point, you have to be invited. There is a PR. It's a little bit old, but there is an idea for open boards, or open threads in this case, where anyone could comment. But we still need to tackle the moderation part, because right now it's pretty basic. And so it requires a lot of human interaction, and you need to be pending on new threads, for example, new comments, so you can actually flag them if there is a need for that.
Okay, so this is a change compared to the legacy board where everyone can participate, right?
Yes. If we do merge that, yes.
Okay.
That PR has some things. It's something to be discussed. I think it's draft still, but there are things maybe could be done. If it's open, maybe you can request a fee, for example, or I don't know. There has to be a mechanic, because otherwise you can receive a lot of spamming if you open the board to anyone.
Okay, thank you.
Should I go with my hand up? Hello?
Oh, sorry. Yes.
A couple of people put their hands up.
Yeah, I didn't see. Sorry. Yeah.
What we played around with a lot of these questions with desocial, and when you think about something like removing all of a user's posts from a board, you have to think about what happens when you render a page. Right now, you can use the paginator, and that's so if the board had thousands of posts, you can still page through it easily with the render, because the AVL tree that all the posts are in can just give you post 100 through 110, and it can just, and then you only spend cycles during the call to render to just get those. But if you, for example, had deleted a user, then there's no easy way to have the AVL tree only give you results for a particular user. Because if you ask for posts 900 through 910, it has to examine all posts from 0 to 900 to skip over those that user, and that's a lot of cycles. Likewise, if you wanted to remove all the posts in one step, maybe delete user would try to delete, it's possible that would take too many cycles also to comprehensively go through all those thousands of posts and remove the user. So that's another reason why you have to, adding fancy filters is really difficult to do. For dsocial, we had to set up our own application-specific indexer to handle that. But doing it through a render function, which has limited amount of cycles, is difficult.
Yes, yeah, that's right. We had to deal with boards or these kind of things with some limitations. At this point, we don't have an indexer, so there are going to be limitations. Right now, if you delete something, truth is like it will still exist in the blockchain, but you won't be able to see it through boards.
I'm saying that would that's also difficult. Even if you leave it in there when you want to display, when render is called to display, then the filtering would have to happen at that moment, and that could take too many cycles also, if there's a lot of data to filter. Yeah. Anyways, thanks.
Thank you, Chef. John, did you have a question or?
No, sorry, I left my hand raised from earlier. Thanks, though.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks a lot for the demo, Colonel. We appreciate it. And yeah, thank you everyone for the questions too. If you get the chance to try out the latest deployment for boards, that'd also be much appreciated. And yeah, your feedback's always encouraged. I think we can jump to discussions. Have 3 discussion points here. First one by the Birdie team, working with Alexi to make Gnoki mobile ready for test flight. Yeah,
this is just a statement. Normally we have Yuri give a demo of the latest user interface for Gnoki mobile, but he's traveling today. But we are working with Alexi, trying to move towards getting everybody, especially him, being able to play with it really close to that. I'll just jump to the second one. Let me share my screen. And this is not a demo because it's really a question. Present entire screen. Entire screen. So I opened a PR with a TX star which crashes the node. And you might remember I did this a while ago for a different problem, but that was solved. And so now so the TX star would actually pass now. But this is one which fails. And basically, it's pretty simple. It just maybe I can show it to you on the here, which is more pretty. I should have prepared better. So all it does is creates a board, creates a thread, and then tries to add 200 replies. And I will show you it running in the command line so that you will believe that it does. So you just go to the top of the Gno repo, and when it says unable to call RPC, it's because the node failed. When I do this whole thing from Gnome on the command line with a running node, I get the same thing, and the Go runtime crashes with Stack Overflow. So my question is is this a surprise, or is this something you want me to help you look into more, or is it normal that there could be some operations maybe that involve a lot of loops that would crash? Like this says, if you change this to just adding 100 nodes, then it passes. It does what you would expect. So I'm not sure who this is a question for. It's also true that to get this to work, it's a txtar which does a Gnome run into some code which does a crossing call. So in this case, in this PR, as I mentioned, I am also, I just pulled in the commit that Manfred made just to get this to work. I don't suspect that the crash is due to this, so maybe it's a question for Manfred. I can't run this example without this code, but it doesn't look that like something that would consume the stack. So
can you share the stack trace again, please?
yeah, it's pretty ugly.
Or maybe you can post it on an issue or a gist and send me the link.
Yeah, it's a lot. This is a running node, so there's a zillion threads. But I can attach it to the PR, and I'll just make a text file out of this and attach it to the PR. Yeah, so if you want to take a look at it, you can. I can also. My other question is do you want me to? Well, I'll let you look at the stack. If you still think it's worth, I can try to simplify this, right? I mean, we discovered this by playing with the board, but presumably this is because of attaching a bunch of things to an AVL tree. And I could simplify this whole thing down to just creating a little script which makes an AVL tree and tries to fill. I could try to narrow this down also. But I'll take that as a step to attach. I'll rerun this and get the latest thing, and then I'll attach that as a text file to the PR, and I'll ping you on Signal when I do that. Any other comments? If not, that's all I have to say. So the question was, what should I do? And I got the answer. Thanks.
And by the way, about my PR, I get an approval from Jay that I or someone else can continue my PR. The direction is good to make TX run both something with the package pass and returning it is equal true.
Great.
My impression is bad because it uses rejects. I just copied from the Go part. But basically, we need to make it more efficient, and then it's okay.
Beautiful. That's it. Thanks. Unless someone has their hand up? No. Okay, thanks.
Awesome, man. Thanks for that, Jeff. The third discussion point here is regarding gnomod private field state guidance, enlightenment explanation, and why choose the word draft as field name to enforce deployed and imported at Genesis only.
Yes, hello, it's me. Can you hear me good?
Yeah.
Yeah, so maybe I will start about the draft. So I'm working on a new PR to handle a draft field in the gnomod.toml. And so the draft field is about enforced package to be deployed only at Genesis and imported to. It just, from the naming, for me, it doesn't make sense to name it draft. So I would like to know the explanation behind the naming draft for deploy package at Genesis only? Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah. Maybe Manfred, since you opened the issue, you have some explanation about it?
What's the question?
I was asking why you choose the word draft for the package deployed at Genesis only. Like, what is the meaning of draft related to Genesis?
Why is a term actually? Because it's the best one we found. In practice, I think we could find even better. Why we need it? We need a draft flag allowing us to deploy contracts that are something you can interact with, so dApps, but not importable. Using this flag, we can expect launching chains, so this one, but also upcoming chains, with a preset of applications that we want people to be able to use, but we also want to have more time to make security audits, maybe some improvements. So basically, this flag is about usable, but not yet finished enough, not yet reviewed enough. So we don't want to have the additional responsibility of being imported by other people. We just want to focus on the service provided by the dApp. So this is the rule of draft. Basically, a draft package is not importable when you try to depend on it. If you try to add pkg and one of your import is a draft, it will fail. Panic, sorry, your import is a draft. But at Genesis, this check is bypassed. So once again, launching this chain, but also launching any other chain, could be a local one, could be a staging, could be another land network, would allow to just ship things. But yeah, with just the responsibility of the service provided and not the importability. Private is another, it's relatively similar, but this one is not at Genesis time, but at runtime. Private can be added at Genesis and can be added after. Private can never be imported by anything. And by having this guarantee of not being imported, a private module is something that can be replaced by the author. So a private module becomes public once the author decides. So it could be because of a security audit, but what we expect mostly is, since you can replace a private package, we expect people to usually start with private packages, iterate, upload a new version, upload a new version, upload a new version. At some point, okay, that's stable enough. This time I remove the private flag and it becomes public. So it could be seen as a pre-release system. This field is more to a kind of a pre-release, so under the hood is the same principle. It's not importable, but this flag is usable after Genesis, while the other one, private, is not usable at Genesis, because in practice at Genesis we want to upload dApps that will rely on the same packages. Private field doesn't make sense for a p/, but makes sense for a r/. So we expect p/ developers to publish final versions. The exception is for draft ones, the Genesis ones, the one the one powering the built-in dApps. But yeah, private is something we expect users to use for their r/, so that they can replace the r/, and at some point they remove the flag. So what you can expect is for Gnome to maybe have a visual indicator that this package is private or not. And so you know if basically the package is final or if it can be changed by the author. And it's a new pattern. Right now, I think that once this field will be implemented, we should eventually consider making it the default value for any realm and add a new verb, which is edit package, so you can switch a private module to a public one, but not the opposite. Something public is public forever. Or maybe with some exceptions like gov.dao. I also expect r/home, the home realm, the one used by Gnome to configure your personal presentation and also soon to configure your team. I expect the home realm to always be private. So we expect basically the team to be able to update itself. And maybe some teams will decide to make it public, but at some point I expect the team to always be something private, something you want to configure, something people can consume, read, but not something people can depend on. Is there anything to add? So yeah, if you have a better name, it's a good time to propose it. Definitely, names are improvable, but in terms of needs, we need at least these two fields, one for Genesis exception, and the goal for the draft modules is to be not importable until we make an audit, or maybe until we update them with some fixes, but at some point to not be draft anymore. And private is similar, but it only makes sense for r/, and it's a runtime thing. You should not use draft except if you are a blockchain builder. You should use private most of the time, and depending on the maturity of your project, you should consider removing this flag.
Yeah, it's pretty clear. I mean, I don't have better naming for now, but just for me, draft means more something like, okay, maybe I want to publish and not be importable, but I mean, I feel like if something is draft, I can still add it after Genesis, just maybe not importable because I don't know, I'm building my realm. I don't know, I want to publish, but it's not ready, and I want to make it maybe draft. So yeah, for me, it doesn't link to Genesis.
Maybe
part.
we find a better name, and maybe draft should be private, and we should have another one for Genesis. Maybe pre-release is another good name. I don't know. Beta could be beta, alpha, beta, etc.
Yeah.
Feel free to basically we need to implement it, but at the end, changing the field names is the easiest part of this feature. So it's a good time to discuss if anybody have better options to propose.
Yeah, I opened a PR for the draft, but for the private, I'm still working on it. And so you want us to handle like the things that we can swap?
I saw your PR about Ignore, which is a third field, which is the simplest one because it's already implemented. Do you mean you?
I did 3 PR, but all the PR depends on each other. But the private one is still in draft because I just did the import thing and I have to look for the state persistence. But do I have to handle the fact that we can replace private realm?
No. We will.
Okay.
We will make dedicated new things later. Just focus on having the VM making. Taking into account the field, but replacing etc. is something we'll do after.
Okay. So, and I saw about the private, so it cannot have state persistence. Like the sentence was, it is not importable and state persistence by other packages. But in my understanding, if it's not importable, other package cannot modify the state of the realm.
No, it's not about modifying the state of the realm. It's about having other. So the goal of private is to make sure we can replace the code completely without any impact on other contracts. We don't want to break any contract by removing a private contract or replacing it. So preventing import is obviously the easiest part of it. The second part we need to take care is about panicking if the ownership code, if the VM tries to store something depending on this private realm. There are two main things another realm can depend on from your contract. It could be a pointer to your contract. So if your private contract import another contract and basically register itself, if I call, for instance, the Leon's realm Hall of Fame and I register just a string, it's fine. Leon can store a string that my contract sends to his contract. If I call Hall of Fame that register and I provide, for instance, a callback, then the callback can become invalid if I replace my code base. So a pointer to something declared locally should not be allowed to be stored on another realm. And the second point is not a pointer to, but a struct, a type definition. If I define a type in my private realm and I store this type in some ways remotely, actually I think it will also be a pointer, but you get the idea. If a local pointer or something defined as a local type of your private contract is stored remotely, in practice, your contract cannot be replaced. So this is the things we need to take care. And draft is different because when you launch a chain and you want to provide 50 dApps that are depending on each other, you can't prevent it. Right now, if you look at the examples folder, and for instance, gov.dao is both importing and imported by so many things, we cannot make the Genesis built-in dApps private. We need to make them able to import and store things, but we don't want to make them importable until we audit them. So that's why you want a draft that only prevent import at PKG time, but we don't look at the ownership part. For private, it's different. Private, the goal is not to secure the blockchain providers, but to allow the contract writers to be able to replace the contract without breaking anything else. So here, yeah, preventing import.
Thank you. It's a lot more clear. Like I didn't think about this way, so it's more clear now for private field.
For instance, a GRC20 cannot be private if they want to register on the GRC20 registry, because the GRC20 registry wants a pointer to the teller or to the token. I don't remember the term. So GRC20 should be public by default, and that makes sense. You expect the GRC20 to not be something the developer can replace easily. You expect a developer to make a public GRC20 and then maybe a private controller. It gives you some dependency on the system which is not stable enough, but at least the GRC20 itself becomes more trustable because any action you did is still inside. So as a user, the goal for you is to be able to be aware of what you are using and the maturity level of everything. That's why Gnome should quickly help make a difference between a private and a non-private contract. It's not a bad thing to be private, but in practice, it offers less guarantees. Way less guarantees. It's not something you can trust. Something you can try, but not something you can trust.
And I have maybe a last naive question, but is it like if you store in another realm a callback or a struct defined in a realm with crossing, does like, for example, so if I store in another realm a struct defined in a realm A, with crossing, does the struct A belong to realm A? So do I have to just avoid like forbid crossing, or you think it will not be enough for this?
Maybe it's enough. Maybe it's enough because, as you said, basically you need to cross to store anything. No, I think we should allow crossing, but just prevent pointers and local types. If you cross to set a string, that's fine. I want you to be able, for instance, if you want to create a private realm that creates a proposal, and this proposal is mostly about strings and calling existing callbacks defined at another location, it's okay because sorry, a private contract is basically like a make-takes run. When you make a make-takes run, you are creating temporary code that can do whatever they want against other contracts. But if the other contract depends on a make-takes run locally defined type, in practice, as soon as the contract disappears because it's ephemeral, it will fail. So that's the same rule. We want make-takes run contracts to not be able to persist local pointers, because at the end of the transaction, the pointer becomes like an orphan. And then the same for a private contract, so that we can replace the contract without any problem. But yeah, crossing to provide primitive types or crossing to provide a pointer to another public realm makes sense. You can cross, but you can't provide a local pointer or local type. You can't store a local pointer or a local type. You can even pass a local pointer, but the other realm should not try to store it. That's really something in ownership.go. In ownership.go, there is a resolver of new objects. And in that file, we need to take care that all the new objects are not depending on a private contract. No, that's wrong. Private is stateful, but cannot affect.
Yeah,
no, private is stateful and can affect the realm states, but not with a state depending on a private type or pointer.
Okay, so if I make it in one sentence, you have to be, so if we move it, it shouldn't cause any problems. So
Exactly.
Okay, I think I get it. Thank you for your explanation.
That's why I think maybe there is a better name, like a replaceable or something like this. And yeah, the exact goal of this field is to allow replaceability by making sure that never ever you will break anything by changing yourself or by removing yourself. And once you fuse this field, once you become from private to public, then you, as an author, you cannot change anything anymore. Oh yeah, I need to switch to another call. Is there any last urgent question?
No, thank you from my side. It's all good.
And by the way, I think Ray is in the call. Can you try to ping him, because I think he at least looked at this issue. I'm not sure he started working on it. It would be nice if you can at least collaborate, make sure to not do the same thing, or maybe review each other or something like this. I need to switch. Thank you, guys.
Awesome, yeah. Even though Manfred dropped, yeah, thanks a lot to Manfred for the breakdown. Yeah, seeing that we're just over time, if there's no urgent discussion points, I think we can wrap up for today. Yeah, I want to thank everyone for tuning in, and we'll see you around.
Only the winner left.
We need to jump, right?
Oh, really?
I think so.
No, looks everyone is coming.
Yeah, I don't know, because actually it's another call, so I don't know what we should do.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's Gnoland. You're right.
Okay. See you.
Milos is in the other one. See ya.